The information and opinions expressed by the guests or host of Help Thyself do not necessarily reflect the views of WBFY Community Radio or its license holder, the City of Belfast, or should be taken as medical advice or a health provider-patient relationship. WBFY Belfast Community Radio presents Help Thyself, a show about health and well-being. I now present Dr. Michael A.Housman.
Hello, this is Dr. Mike Hausman, and this is Health Thyself, a show about health and wellness on WBFY 100.9 FM, our Belfast community radio station. And today's topic is, are you stuck in fight or flight? So we're going to be talking about fight or flight, which is our emergency system in our body, and how we can get stuck in that mode and the effects that it may have on our health, well-being, and how our body does going into the future. So before we get into some of the symptoms of fight or flight, let's talk a little bit about the nervous system and how fight or flight works and why it's there. It's a very primitive response that's built into our what's called our autonomic nervous system. And what our autonomic nervous system is the part of our nervous system that's really running the body. There's 13 or so trillion cells in the body, different organ systems, digestive, cardiac system, all the different systems that have to run on their own without our conscious awareness of that. And that's part of what's called the autonomic nervous system. It's actually divided up into two parts, even though they do commingle. One is called the parasympathetic part of the nervous system, and the other part is the sympathetic nervous system. When we're dealing with fight or flight, we're going to be talking mostly about the sympathetic nervous system, but these two parts of the nervous system really balance each other and help us to stay in balance. The parasympathetic part of the nervous system is involved with our digestive system, it's involved with our heart, it's involved with opening up the different valves, or what's called the sphincters in the body, so that food can flow, so our digestion can work properly. So the parasympathetic nervous system is involved with sort of what we call the status quo in the body. It regulates our digestion, our heart rate, the relaxation of the sphincters in the digestive system, so that the food can flow through the digestive system. It controls what's called peristalsis, which is the contraction of our stomach and our intestines so that the food, as we digest, gets broken down and digested properly. And so this parasympathetic part of the nervous system comes out of two different areas of our brain and spinal cord. The upper portion comes out of our brainstem, which includes some of our cranial nerves, and the lower portion comes out of our sacrum. So the nerves that regulate that come out of two different areas. So the parasympathetic nervous system is really involved in the maintenance and the digestive process so that it works properly. On the other side of the coin is called the sympathetic nervous system. And the sympathetic nervous system really acts in a way to get us ready for emergencies and for activity. The sympathetic nervous system basically is going to dilate our pupils so that we let more light in. It's going to get the blood flowing from the digestive system into the muscles. So what happens is the sphincters in the digestive system close, and then the blood flow gets shuttled from the digestive system into the muscles, so we're ready for activity, ready for action, ready for avoiding danger. The sympathetic nervous system is a very primitive system in the body that really allows us to react quickly if we're in some sort of danger. And again, when we speak of danger, we're dealing with physical danger here, though this system can also get activated, and we'll talk a little later on about the effects of it being activated also by emotional danger. We can get triggered to react our sympathetic nervous system if there's stress, whether it be work stress, stress at home, financial stress, even something like reading the newspaper and reading about something bad that's happening, or talking to a friend that's under stress. So this nervous system, even though it's designed to respond to physical stress, can also get triggered by emotional stress. So some of the other things that this nervous system will do, sympathetic nervous system, is it'll increase the heart rate. So the heart starts beating faster. The blood pressure goes up. The blood vessels of the skeletal system will start to dilate because, again, we're getting ready for danger, for jumping out of the way of that car, or reacting quickly when something happens where our reflexes have to be heightened. The blood vessels, again, in the abdomen vasoconstrict, and it triggers the liver to mobilize a chemical in the body called glycogen. And glycogen is stored in the liver. It's also stored to a certain degree in the muscles in smaller amounts, but stored in the liver. And glycogen is a sugar that it's basically a stored glucose that can give us a quick burst of energy, so that when we need energy, our body can release this glycogen, and it's a very short-term burst of energy. It doesn't last very long, maybe 15, 20 minutes. Sympathetic nervous system is meant to turn on for short periods of time, not for long periods of time. Though if we're in what's called a stress response, meaning that our body has been under stress for a long period of time, whether it be real or imaginary, then the body can start triggering the sympathetic response over a long period of time. And again, we'll talk about some of the symptoms of that, but those symptoms will be very closely aligned with the symptoms that we're already talking about, the symptoms of what happens when the sympathetic nervous system turns on, such as dilated pupils. One of the symptoms of someone stuck in the sympathetic response is that they have what's called photophobia, which basically means that they're very sensitive to bright light. So if they go outside, they really feel like they need sunglasses, they're shielding their eyes. And the reason for that is that the sympathetic nervous system, if it gets turned on and stays turned on, the pupils will dilate, let in too much light, and they will become photophobic. Dilated pupils is also something that you'll see with drugs that trigger the sympathetic nervous system. So androgenic drugs that have an adrenaline-type response will cause the pupils to dilate. It's one of the ways that as a doctor you can tell either a person's stuck in the sympathetic mode or they've got a nervous system problem with the brain, concussion, or they're on some kind of drug, either prescription or otherwise, that's causing their sympathetic nervous system to go into overdrive, like amphetamines will do that. Things that trigger an adrenal response will do that. The urinary bladder wall relaxes in the sympathetic response. The blood vessels of the head will vasoconstrict. Blood will get shuttled away from the brain, again, into the muscular system. And the reason for that is the muscular system is getting ready to react. The muscles tighten up. This is why we kind of go into automatic mode when we're in a sympathetic response. Difficulty thinking as far as planning ahead, difficulty concentrating, again, because that blood's being shuttled into the muscles. We're getting ready for, again, the fight or flight response, which is running, reacting, having our muscular system ready. So another symptom that can occur with somebody that's stuck in the sympathetic response is difficulty focusing, difficulty concentrating, mental fog, because again, blood is being shuttled via vasoconstriction, which means the blood vessels are tightening in the brain and around the head and are dilating, opening up into the muscular system. These blood vessels have muscles inside of them that can open and close. They can constrict and they can dilate. So blood can get shuttled to different areas of the body based on what the autonomic nervous system perceives as necessary. So another symptom of being stuck in a sympathetic or a fight or flight response would be headaches, because the blood supply is constricting to the head and brain, and again dilating to the muscles, so the muscles are going to be again ready for danger. There are certain hormones that get triggered in the stress response, and these hormones primarily come from the adrenal glands. They also come from the pituitary, but we'll talk a little bit about the adrenal glands in the pituitary. But let's talk about the hormones. And hormones are really chemical messengers. They basically signal different parts of the body that travel through the bloodstream, and they go to different organs, and they go to all the cells in the body, and they trigger a particular reaction so that the body can respond very quickly. So these hormones are secreted by the different glands in the body. And they're also called very often neurotransmitters, because they transmit information throughout the nervous system. So one of the first hormones that we're probably all familiar with that's triggered by the sympathetic nervous system is adrenaline. Adrenaline is a hormone. It's also called epinephrine. Epinephrine and adrenaline are really the same hormone, and it's used as a medication. We've heard of EpiPens. An EpiPen is basically a pen that people use for if they've got an allergic reaction, either to peanuts or possibly some type of hive reaction where their throat is closing. An EpiPen delivers epinephrine directly into the body. So this adrenaline released into our system is released from a gland. Actually, there's two of them that sit on top of our kidneys, and these are called the adrenal glands. And these are really the main glands for the sympathetic nervous system. So the adrenal glands, they release different what are called neurochemicals or neurotransmitters, but the main one that we're going to talk about first is adrenaline, which happens during that sympathetic response. And again, it's important to understand what adrenaline does, because then we can kind of understand what happens when the adrenal glands start to get depleted of adrenaline if the sympathetic response goes on and on, if it keeps on going, which is what the title of the show is, which is if you're stuck in fight or flight. So what does adrenaline do? Well, adrenaline is the main hormone of the fight or flight response. It constricts the smooth muscle of the skin so the hairs stand on end. So we get that goose flesh look. And I guess that's designed to cool us better, also make us look scarier, kind of like the cat. When a cat gets scared, their hair stands up, makes them look bigger. Again, it dilates our pupils to let more light in so that we can see better. Our senses become heightened as far as our visual senses and our sensory system, so that we can become more aware of what's going on in the short term in our environment. Again, it constricts the smooth muscle of our abdominal blood systems, which is the smooth muscle going into our digestive system. So essentially, our digestive system starts to shut down so that we can funnel energy into our muscular system. Now again, this is important because a lot of symptoms of someone that's stuck in fight or flight or stuck in the stress response are digestive systems, because the digestive system is not getting the proper amount of energy if they're in an ongoing fight or flight, because the body thinks that it's still getting ready for an emergency. So the digestive system is not getting as much energy as it should because the blood isn't being funneled there. And the sphincters or the valves that control the flow of food through the intestinal or digestive system are also not working properly to allow the food to flow. The cardiac muscle, which is your heart, beats quicker. Rapid heartbeat. I mean,